Welcome to the Rusted Garden. Today is July 3rd. It's been about 16 days since the second part of growing cherry tomatoes from seed to harvest. These plants have tripled in size since then. You can check out the second video and see how much they've grown. So what we're going to do today is we're going to drop in this 8-foot post. We're also going to get in there, bottom prune. I'll talk about that. We'll talk about removing different suckers. Because this is a cherry tomato plant, we will have to remove some of the suckers in the joint, and I'll show you how to identify them and some thoughts on why you may thin them out. And basically, cherry tomatoes get massive, they get a lot of growth, so you want to control for disease. This is the smaller plant that's really gotten larger. That's going to have to get moved because it's too many plants there, and I think I'll just relocate that one. You can see small holes in the plants. These leaves are wet because I put down some insect dust last night in the evening, and I rinse it off in the morning. And I'll talk about why we would do that, how we take care of potential problems, slugs. We'll use iron phosphate, we'll get mulch down. We're going to talk about a whole lot. And over here you can see my tomatoes next door are having some problems, and I'll show you how we prune the gap right in there so that it's a little bit harder for maybe an insect problem over here to jump over to your tomato plant. And then I'll talk about spraying for diseases like early blight and different kinds of problems. So we're going to cover a whole lot. But this tomato is doing really well. We're going to take care of it. And let's just get started with, let's start at the bottom. We'll start with bottom pruning. So this plant is about 36 inches tall, and you want to take off about 20% of the leaves down here. So slowly take the leaves off. You don't want to shock the plant by taking off too many. So 20% of 36 is about 7 inches, and we're going to remove the leaves to about here. And what that does is that starts creating a disease barrier between the soil and the bottom leaves, and that's how a lot of spores get onto your plants and work their way up. It also helps if you've got any kind of hopping insects that need to jump up on the leaves, establish themselves and work their way up. It creates a nice gap for that. And all you're going to do is cut off the leaves. And that starts the gap. You can go slowly. When this plant grows some more, we'll remove a couple more leaves. Let's take out all the weeds. Don't know why my voice just cracked. And then we're going to put down mulch. I like using shredded hardwood. It has a lot of surface area. It locks together, so if you're on a slope where it rains hard, it doesn't wash away. And it decays really quickly because of all the surface area, so it can be worked into your soil in a year or two. A lot of people say you can't put wood on your garden soil because it's going to compete with your plant for the nitrogen. That's true, but not when it sits on top of your soil like this. And remember, we're going to remove that plant. When it sits on top, it's just a barrier. It'll keep moisture in your soil. You'll have to water less. Keeps the moisture even, helps prevent fruit cracking. But this is all you do to set up a nice disease barrier between the soil and your bottom leaves. Now, pruning isn't as complicated as you might think it is. In fact, you can really prune any way that you want. All you're doing is reducing sometimes the number of leaves, but more importantly, the full production stems off of your tomato plants. And if you don't have disease or insect issues, you can really prune less because the tomato will be perfectly fine. But in my area, with the humidity, early blight always comes in. You want to prune out your tomatoes to really manage the size. Let more air circulate through there and just kind of maintain the plant better. And again, when I'm doing this, I may take off 3 stems or 4 stems. You don't have to follow it exactly. Just sort of understand the principles and decide to do it how you want based on your zone. So you have the main production stem. It comes out of the ground, it grows up, a leaf comes out right here, and then the stem keeps growing, and right in the joint here between the leaf and the main growing stem is a sucker. Now a sucker will turn into a full production stem just like this. It will produce leaves, it will produce fruit, and every single joint will produce a sucker, and this little guy here is going to turn into a big sucker just like this, or a production stem, and it will grow, a leaf will come out, a leaf will come out, and then eventually the flower clusters form and it will produce fruit. So you can keep as many of these as you want, But you do want to thin them out down at the bottom, because now I have the main stem right here, fruit producing. I have this sucker that I'm going to let grow as a production stem, so that's my second. And then there's a third one over here. And then each of these stems will produce suckers. For example, this one is producing another one. Here's the main stem, there's the leaf, and right in the middle is the sucker or production stem, and it will produce flowers. So starting at the bottom, I'm going to remove this one down here. I don't want another full stem growing out of there. There was a leaf right here that we just cut off coming out here. This is a sucker. I'm not going to keep that one. Just snap it out. And again, it's creating the space here. So then when we come up here, I'm going to keep this one. That's going to produce. We're keeping the main stem right here. And in the joint, it has a leaf, the main stem, another sucker here. I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to keep this one, and as my plant gets taller, I tend to leave more of the suckers to become production stems. And over here, you can see the leaf, the main stem right there, and this back here is another sucker that is really growing nice and strong, and I'm going to keep that one. And up there, you can see the flowers. But it's really a matter of preference, and you're removing the suckers to allow airflow, manage the size. And when you do remove them, yes, you're removing some flowers, but you're also allowing the plant to concentrate on growing the other fruits that are in the other clusters. And again, it's a part of really a personal preference. There's no exact way. Cherry tomatoes I tend to prune more because they're so prolific and they just keep growing and growing and growing. My determinate varieties I prune very little, but it's all up to you. But that's the basic way on how you figure out how to prune. And again, you have the main stem, a leaf comes out, the main stem continues, and right in the joint is the sucker. This is a full grown one. This is one that's a little bit smaller right here. So main stem, leaf, there's the sucker, and eventually it will produce flowers right up there. But it's kind of like if you go like this, stem, or the leaf would be your thumb, your middle finger would be your stem, and growing right out of the joint is the sucker, and that's what you would remove. Alright, let's get to staking this plant to this post that I just put in. This is an 8-foot post. This was the original guide post, and we're just going to tie that together, nothing fancy. This cherry tomato is the Midnight Snack. It's an All-America Selections winner for 2017, and actually the 2018 All-America Selection winners are going to be coming out this month, I believe. They're a nonprofit organization that are celebrating their 85th anniversary, and they only do one thing, is they go and they hold seed trials yearly to find new winning varieties of vegetables and flowers. They don't sell the seeds, they just declare the winners, and I really recommend going to their site. I'll put a link up on the screen, and you can find the newest seed varieties for vegetables and for flowers, and you can grow something in your garden that other people aren't growing quite yet. Now, we stake this to a smaller stake just to guide it up, and this is going to outweigh, literally, this stake, and it's not going to hold. So we dropped in an 8-foot stake. It's a 1x1 from Home Depot. It's 8 feet. I think these are maybe $4 or something like that, but it's really, really worth it. All we do, and make sure the flower clusters don't get wedged in between here, or the leaves don't get wedged in between here, just tie the stake over just like this. Nice and tight, and this will be plenty of support for your cherry tomato to grow up. And this is going to get 6 or 8 feet tall. Cherry tomatoes grow really, really well. And I broke a flower cluster, even after saying don't. So be careful when you do it. Luckily, cherry tomatoes are super prolific, so I won't even notice that in a few weeks. And this will provide enough support. Now again, I'll go and tie it up here so it's nice and solid. But this will be a nice stake for the tomato to grow up. And again, when you're tying the main stem or different stems off, like for instance, this one I'm going to leave I talked about. So I'm going to want to pull it into here. And you can leave a nice big loop like that. And you're just helping control the growth of the plant. This one over here, I'll pull in tight like that, leaving a nice gap. But we're just going to grow this tomato straight up here. We're going to prune out some of the suckers as I mentioned, but there's going to be plenty of growth all around this stake, all the way going up to 8 feet, and we're going to have tons of tomatoes. Okay, let's get to sort of disease management now. I'll talk to you a little bit about spraying and controlling for the problems that come into your garden. Alright, now there's a lot of products for your garden. Some of you may want to be 100% organic, that's fine. Some of you may use the chemicals like I do occasionally, that's fine too. It's all up to you, and what I find is based on your gardening zone, based on the insects, based on the diseases, you're going to need different products, and that's why I show all the different ones in my video. Now, I'm not going to go into depth for all of these, but I will be doing videos over the next 2 weeks on all these products if you want to subscribe and learn how to use them in your garden. What I find is the best gardener is the educated gardener. Use the different tools when the situation arises and do your best. And in fact, there's a lot of talk about organic gardening, which is great, but if you want to stick with organic, go. You know, just be 99% organic. Do it the way you want to. If you have a problem that can't be resolved organically, use another product and then go right back to it. You're still an organic gardener and you're still going to be fine. So let's start with disease. So over on my plants over here, I had an infestation of insects. You can't really see it here, but there are white flecks in there. Maybe aphids, maybe spider mites. Also some the early blight is starting to set into my plants. They come to weaker leaves. The point is that when you start seeing signs, it's a little bit too late to spray. So let's start with prevention. So when your plant is looking healthy and you know you have diseases that come into the area, we're talking diseases right now, not insects. Start with prevention. And baking soda is a great way to prevent diseases from getting hold on your leaves. 1 tablespoon to a gallon. Always test spray any new sprays on some leaves. Wait 24 hours, 48 hours, see if there's any damage. 1 tablespoon in a gallon. Spray the top, spray the undersides, and what this does is it makes the leaf surface unhospitable to the diseases that are coming. And that's the whole goal with all of these kinds of sprays, is they make the leaf surface change in a way that the diseases don't take hold. They all work differently. But baking soda is organic. It's the least I don't know, chemical based, I guess. It's just plain old baking soda. And you would spray every 7 to 14 days, top side, underside, but always test spray. Now, if you start getting a breakout, maybe you notice this isn't necessarily a leaf disease, but you notice something's happening on your leaf, you can go to Serenade. This is a great spray that does really well in controlling problems. It's for organic gardening, and this can take care of the problem. I use this a lot. And typically for me, I start with baking soda in June, start working my way up to Serenade for July and August, and if this works, I stop there. Now you have another chemical, which is Daconol or Daconil, not sure how to pronounce it. It's the best fungicide out there for actually stopping outbreaks. It works really, really well. I had to use it a couple years ago. However, it is a chemical and it does have health issues depending on what you read, and I would recommend that you go and you read about this before you use it in your garden and make a personal decision. But if you're having a crop that's being wiped out, the Daconol can really make a difference. We'll get to spraying in a second. Now we have holes in the leaves. These are insects. Those aren't snails and slugs, might be spider mites, might be beetles of some sort. 7 dust you can put right on the leaves, the lower leaves, and the insects will walk through that. That will kill them. I put this on in the evening, I wash it off in the morning. If you don't want to use 7 dust because that is a chemical, you can use diatomaceous earth, and this works by getting into the joints of the insects, and you would just sprinkle that on the lower leaves. Sprinkle some on the bottom too. They will walk through this, it gets into the joints, it grinds down the waxy surface on their shell, and they dehydrate. Now, if you don't want to use dusts for whatever reason, or you see the insects on there, Captain Jack's dead bug spray works really, really well, but you do have to contact the insects with that, and that will kill them off. And this is an organic product too, I believe. So that's a couple of ways to deal with diseases. That's a couple of ways to deal with insects. And then finally, if you have snails and slugs, the best product is iron phosphate, and you just, that's it, sprinkle it down like that. They eat the baited pellets, it kills the snails and slugs, and this has changed the way that I can garden. Alright, so now we're at the mode, say we're at preventative spraying for diseases, and it's over here on my other plants. I just want to show you how to do it. This is the Serenade, and I wouldn't put dust down and then spray. I would spray and let it dry. but just soak the leaves down on the tops everywhere, and then make sure you get underneath of the leaves. That's where a lot of the diseases take hold, and you really want to spend time getting on the underside. That's most important. And you would do this anywhere from 7 to 14 days. Varies on the outbreak and what's going on. Now, I did say we were also going to look at taking care of disease jumping from one plant to another. And instead of pruning off entire leaves, just cut some leaves off and make a gap just like that. That allows wind and air to circulate through, keep your plant dry, take care of any problems, and it stops the leaves from touching where things can transfer much more easily. Alright, I've covered a lot. I'm going to take a pause and just think about anything else I need to cover that I said I would. Alright, I think I pretty much covered everything. That's the total amount of suckers and leaves that I removed off of the Midnight Snack from All America Selections. Took leaves off the bottom, remember, about 20%. Took out some of the suckers, which do turn into production stems and have flowers and fruit, but we want to control the mass of the plant, and it's going to vary based on your zone. Also took out some leaves here by just trimming the leaves back so there was a nice gap. When it comes to disease prevention, insect prevention, whatever you choose to use, just stick with the routine. If it's taking care of plants every 7 days, every 14 days, stick to your routine. And again, I want to highly recommend going to All America Selections, a nonprofit organization that really brings new varieties to us, and it's a lot of fun. And again, this is the Midnight Snack. Stick with me on this series. The next video will probably just be an update video because we're really covering everything, and then hopefully we got a great harvest, and I'll show you that. Please check out my seed shop at www.therestedgarden.com. Thanks.